All right. Well, next up we have Dr. Liz Haney. Liz, let's bring you up, and I think you should be able to unmute. But Liz Haney, many of you are probably familiar with the Haney soil test. She is the co-founder of that Haney soil test. She understands at a scientific level what we do through our management above ground. She's able to quantify that below ground. And I think that's pretty awesome. So are you there, Liz?
Well, thank you for having me here. I know I've got about 30 minutes.
Yep.
So I'm going to talk about grounded growth, building soil health, and boosting nutrient density. I'm Liz Haney. He gave me a nice introduction. I am the co-owner of Soil Regen. We have Regen Mills, which is a on-farm flour and cornmeal processing mill, and Farmers Reserve Distillery. And I'll talk about that a little more. So right now we're facing a crisis. We're at the critical connection of the intersection of soil, food, and human resilience. So the relationship of that is between regenerative agriculture and nutrient density. And so I want to talk today about how this connection is measurable, meaningful, and market driven. So we face current simultaneous challenges in soil health, human nutrition, and ecosystem function, and they're all interconnected, and they're all part of a food system that has prioritized yield and convenience over nutritional quality or environmental quality. So the emerging research over the past few years, we've seen an explosion in peer-reviewed research on nutrient density and the nutritional superiority of regeneratively grown foods. So David Montgomery and his wife examined 396 individual comparisons and found consistently higher nutrient levels in regenerative systems compared to not only conventional, but also organic. So people are starting to realize this. There's 79 major food and ag companies that are engaged in regenerative agriculture initiatives, but fewer than 10% currently actually market the nutrient advantages of regenerative products. And a lot of that is because the research is limited. We don't have nutritional values on every single type of food from every regenerative farm. U.S. products with regenerative labeling grew 11% in the natural product sector compared to the whole entire sector-wide growth. 62% of health-conscious consumers now actually recognize the term regenerative, and that's been increasing over the years. People are willing to pay more food with proven nutrient benefits. This says 74%. I read another statistic that said that 30% of consumers are willing to pay more for regenerative food specifically. So we all have heard about food deserts. That's getting locally produced food, in places where they don't have good access to grocery stores. But there's also over 2 billion people worldwide suffering from hidden hunger. So micronutrient deficiencies that result from calorie-rich foods that aren't necessarily nutrient-rich. And this comes from degraded soils and also heavily processed foods. Nutrient-deficient soils produce nutrient-deficient crops. And this causes us to suffer from nutrient deficiencies. And we have a health crisis because of that. We have ADHD, rising cancer populations, especially in the Delta. There's concentrations of that there due to heavy herbicide, pesticide, nutrient runoff. So it's a big entire ag system problem. Since 1940, this was one study that showed on an average of 27 kinds of vegetables, copper declined by 76%, calcium declined by 46%, and iron declined by 27%. Magnesium, 24. We can see all these numbers go through in vegetables. Well, it's also happening in meat. copper, calcium, iron, magnesium, potassium all declined over those years. And that's due to our production practices. There's also lower protein contents that's not listed on here. And then we also have phytochemicals, which previously we couldn't test. So in a real world situation, you need 8 oranges today to get the same vitamin A you would from 1 orange in the 1950s. You need twice as much kale to get the same iron. You need 30% more broccoli to get the same calcium. I have a vegetable producer that does regenerative practices and has been measuring the nutrient density of his citrus. And his real world equivalent is he needs 1 of his oranges to get the same nutrition as a store-bought 8 oranges. So this is a real number, and I've seen it with my own producers as well. So this is the health connection. Obviously, according to the CDC, there's a 42% increase in ADHD among children between 2003 and 23. And there's a consistent linkage in the research between nutrient deficiencies, especially micronutrients, and then omega-3 fatty acids that boost the onset and severity of ADHD systems. Now, when we go back to talking about nutrient density, I can't really get my kids to eat broccoli very much, but when I do manage to shove one in their face, I want it to be the most nutrient dense broccoli possible. We also have an overabundance of obesity, and that's quite possibly because we're not getting the nutrients we need from the right amount of food to eat. We're constantly having to eat more so that we can get the minerals that we need. So clinical trials have shown that children that get broad spectrum micronutrient supplementation have improved systems with ADHD, have improvements in their symptoms compared to placebo groups. So just knowing the background that there is a health crisis, there's a health problem that can be caused by our production practices makes me very excited about trying to fix those. So there's a definite connection to the soil, which is what I get really interested in, right? The FAO estimates that over half of the United States topsoil has been lost since farming began. I think there's some recent numbers that say that's possibly quite a bit more. Worldwide, we lose 24 billion tons of fertile soil every year, equivalent to removing 3.4 million acres of farmland out of production. So each 1% decline in soil organic matter results in losing approximately 1,000 pounds of carbon, 80 to 100 pounds of nitrogen. And then we have phosphorus loss, sulfur loss, and associated with that organic matter is also micronutrients like zinc, boron, calcium, magnesium. And not only do we need these nutrients to grow our crops, but we also need them in our bodies when we eat that food. So we don't want to lose any more of this topsoil. The way that we have been conventionally farming is not in nature's image. The way we leave things fallow, lots of tillage, because nature's way is to grow a skin for living systems. It naturally cycles nutrients, it tends towards diversity, and it seeks balance above ground and below ground, and it is sustainable on its own without outside inputs. So I'm sure you've heard the principles of regenerative agriculture, most likely today already. But these are very important when we're thinking about restoring our ag system and restoring soil health, which is going to restore the nutrient quality of our foods. So we want to minimize disturbance, both chemical and physical. No-till systems can increase mycorrhizal fungi colonization by 40 to 60%, improving nutrient access. The mycorrhizal fungi serves as an extension of the root systems so that the plants can get more nutrients out of that soil. keeping the soil covered. Living plants and residue protect soil from erosion. They feed biological activity. As we feed the biology in the soil, they cycle nutrients, they grow their population, and as they're growing their population, they release more nutrients to the plants. So it's critical to have living roots in the ground all year long to increase not only nutrient uptake of your crop, but the diversity of the microbes in the soil, and make sure that their population is healthy so that they can effectively cycle nutrients and deliver those to your crop later. Planting diversity, again, different plants put out different plant root exudates. They feed different microbes. These different microbes have different functions. Some of them mineralize phosphorus. Some of them mineralize nitrogen. Some of them make zinc available. So we need this diversity in the soil, and that plant diversity feeds the diverse microbial system below. And then integrating livestock. Grazing stimulates plant growth and nutrient cycling. Adaptive multi-paddock grazing increases soil carbon by 3 to 8 tons per hectare annually and improves mineral cycling. So how long does it take to change? This is from the Soil Health Institute. And I will say that I have seen this happen in a much faster way, but also sometimes in a slower manner. And it just depends on how many of those different principles that you can realistically implement on your land at a time. So this says, once you start putting in regenerative practices, soil biology responds in 1 to 2 years. I think this is an overestimation. Soil biology is constantly changing, and we can see improvements or declines in soil biology within one growing season, within 1 month. So the way that we treat our soil now and over the next year, over the next few years, even in the next few months, is going to change how that soil biology is responding. Aggregate stability generally improves in 2 to 3 years. That also can happen faster if we are implementing more soil health practices. Organic matter increases measurably in 3 to 5 years. I've seen fields go in 5 years from 2% organic matter to 5% when they're implementing regenerative practices. So the full soil function restoration can take 5 to 7 years in most environments. Now, what that means exactly, I'm not sure, because what we're doing is we're regenerating the soil. We want to continually improve, and we're not going to get full soil function in a commercial system if we're not implementing all these practices. But we're happy with just the changes that do take place over those years, because that's going to improve crop health and then in turn improve our nutrient density. So there are ways to measure the recovery of the soil. Obviously, as they said, I'm a soil scientist, so we use the Haney test to get a baseline on soils and then measure the recovery of the soil as the soil health improves, as people are implementing regenerative management practices. So with the Haney test, we want to mimic how the soil is responding in the field under your management practices and your climate, and measure biological activity and the nutrients in the soil that are available to plants. We do this by using microbial respiration. Microbes take in oxygen and give off CO2, just like we do. And so the greater their population, the more carbon dioxide they give off. That means you have more active microbes breaking down organic matter and cycling nutrients. It also improves the resilience of the soil as far as disease goes as well. We measure water extractable organic carbon. It's the food source for the microbes. So the more food source that they have, the more WEOC that they have, that means that they are going to be well fed and active, and that's going to enhance the mineralization of micronutrients like zinc, manganese, and boron, which are key to boosting crop nutrient density. We also measure water extractable organic nitrogen. This fraction's biologically available and wasn't previously measured. So it reflects the natural nitrogen cycling that supports a steady, balanced plant uptake and also allows us to reduce our synthetic inputs, so our synthetic nitrogen inputs, which improves microbiological activity and decreases nutrient runoff and loadings into our streams and our groundwater. There are ways to measure year over year how your soil might be improving. There's a soil health calculation in the Haney test. It takes into account microbial respiration, their food source, the organic nitrogen, and traditional nutrient values. The Haney test also measures how efficiently that nutrients are being cycled by the microbes. So active biological cycling means that nutrients are in plant available forms when needed. This contributes to mineral uptake, nutrient use efficiency, and can also contribute to higher Brix levels. Studies have shown, the one by Montgomery in 22, that higher Haney scores, so that would be like the soil health calculation, correlate with higher crop nutrient content. So that's including gains in calcium, magnesium, zinc, and boron. So soil health scores can be predictive of food quality, but right now we don't really have all the data to show that across all crops or livestock products. So there's been some research to support all this. So comparing regenerative to conventional fields, regenerative farms had twice the soil organic matter than conventional. Their scores were, Haney soil health scores were 3 times higher, and respiration was dramatically elevated up to 600% higher than their conventional counterparts. So what we when we talk about microbes, we're talking about bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes. They all work together to cycle nutrients and release those to the plants. So there are so many microbes in the soil that we actually don't even know what they all are. We probably have only actually identified 1%. And this is why promoting diversity in the soil is so important. We need to have all of those microbes actually being functional and releasing nutrients to the plant and improving plant health so that we can have the right minerals in the plants and our grains and our vegetables and all of the phytochemicals as well. So again, microbes drive nutrient availability. Higher respiration means that there's more microbes in the soil. Microbial enzymes and acids that solubilize nutrients like zinc, manganese, and boron. So the picture on this slide is a plant root, and those little red arrows are pointing to bacteria that have been sucked up into the plant root. The plant root is taking in those bacteria, taking out the nutrients, and pushing those bacteria back out into the soil. So there's a very symbiotic relationship between the soil microbiological community and plant root health. On side-by-side trials in wheat in the Great Plains, they found that wheat grown regeneratively contained 56% more zinc. So that's essential for immune function and protein synthesis. 41% more boron, which is critical for cell wall formation and reproductive health in the plant. 35% more manganese, which is necessary for antioxidant function and bone formation in humans. 29% more magnesium, 48% more calcium. So beyond bone health, that's essential for nerve function. And then toxic metal reductions. So the same study found that regenerative wheat had lower levels of heavy metals that can accumulate in conventional systems. And I also want to point out that microbes are responsible for herbicide, pesticide breakdown in the soil. So the higher functioning biological system you have in the soil, the more those are going to break down and not be found in our foods later. And I don't mean every time somebody's putting on a pass. That could also be even in an organic system where you're suffering from drift. You want your soils to be as healthy as they possibly can so that your vegetables can be more healthy and survive that. Long-term patterns. So in the North Great Plains Research Lab comparison, they showed that conventional tillage reduces soil micronutrient reserves by 40 to 60% compared to native grassland or regenerative fields. So this pattern is consistent across multiple studies. Regenerative soils maintain or improve critical micronutrients over time, while conventional systems show depletion. I was going to go more into bricks, but I think I might end up running out of time here. Anyway, if anybody's ever done a bricks measurement, the higher bricks that you have, the higher nutrient mineral content. The higher bricks you have, the higher better flavor you have. Higher bricks, better shelf life, and greater pest resistance. And the way that we get higher bricks is by increasing soil health. So I don't know if anybody here likes wine. Bricks is a very important measurement in wine. It's how they determine how much alcohol they can make out of the grapes. But regenerative vineyards using no-till crops, cover crops, and compost have bricks increases of 2 to 4 degrees. And that's directly related to the alcohol content. So these systems are more efficient. This is also true in commodities. Average bricks readings of corn were higher in regenerative systems, soybeans as well, and wheat. And this is particularly important when we're grazing forages. It does happen with forages as well. We increase not only protein content, but phytochemical content as well. And animals actually prefer to eat foods with higher bricks levels because they have more nutrients. So this picture is of some Bloody Butcher red corn. We have a distillery I mentioned earlier. We make bourbon, and we make it out of non-GMO, regeneratively grown heritage corn, like that Bloody Butcher. And we have to use less corn than with the regenerative corn than conventional corn. We produce more liquor out of it. And that's just because it has higher starch contents. And when people taste it, they say they can taste the earthy flavor behind it, which I believe is true. We also use regenerative grains to brew beer. This is Godfather's Cream Ale. It's named after David Brandt. And there were people that tried this. We made it with his blue corn, his heirloom blue corn. People that tried this that didn't like beer and actually really, really liked it. So it does have a different flavor profile, and that comes from the nutrients in those grains. Going into livestock, regenerative versus conventional beef has higher omega-3 fatty acids, lower omega-6 to omega-3 ratios, higher antioxidant levels, higher vitamin E content. It's just better for you. I don't know how many of you here know Fred Provenza, but he's just a great guy, super smart. He said that regeneratively grown beef had significantly higher levels of anti-aging compounds within it. There's other animal products too. This is Graceful. This is one of our regenerative verified milks. According to research, the regenerative and grass-fed milk has more omega-3 fatty acids, higher levels of vitamin K, higher vitamin D, more vitamin A. So I just recently got really into hunting. I have a wildlife and fisheries degree as well as a soil science degree. So I've always been interested in wildlife habitat. We know that regenerative practices can improve wildlife habitat, improve bird populations. It's a great opportunity for stacking enterprises. But what I found interesting is when I killed a deer off of a lease that was conventionally managed and ate that deer, and then went and killed the deer off of a regenerative farm, and I also ate that deer, the meat was significantly different. The beef or the venison from the regenerative field was darker red. It tasted better. It wasn't as gamey as the one off the conventional field. So this is a different type of corn right here, but we tested it and had 12.8% protein. And the importance of this is that we put some out for deer corn. This is in North Carolina. You're allowed to bait there. So we put some of the regenerative corn out against conventional corn, and the deer walked straight past 300 pounds of hybrid corn to the 25 pounds of open pollinated corn to eat that, because animals know what's better for them, just like we do too, even though we may not always do that. So there's a big market opportunity that's coming up, but we're not actually measuring nutrient advantages right now, and that's just due to a lot of associated cost with it. The technology is not completely there yet for us to do on every single vegetable or product that comes through the store. Okay. Well, I'm gonna finish up. I am talking too much, and I'm sorry, but if you're interested in trying out some regenerative foods, we're having a regenerative revival in Toledo, Texas on May 3rd. We're having it at a brewery with regenerative beer. We have chefs coming in and cooking over open pit. We have regenerative beef from Thousand Hills, grass-fed beef. We have local vegetables. We'll have live music. And what I really want everybody at this event to do is we're trying to teach the consumer to understand where their food comes from, the practices behind them, meet the growers, and just becoming connected more with that food source and taste that nutritional quality within that. But if anybody has any questions or wants to get in touch with me, here's my contact info. And I thank you for having me here today.
Hey, that is awesome. We appreciate that. So we'll share in the link. It looked like there was a link to an event that you just did. Was that your gift? Was the registration to go back and watch that, Liz?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you can jump on that. A question from the chat is, can you do the Haney test in other parts of the world like Europe?
Yes, but I recommend you ship it overseas because there aren't very many labs there that do it. So you can get a customs form and ship it over.
Very cool. Yeah. So I guess just reach out to you if they have additional or need additional information. And so screenshot Liz's contact information here. You can also, what I like to do is when I am in a virtual event like this, I take notes on my computer and I will copy and paste important links, or even quotes, or you can screenshot something like this, her contact information, and then paste it into wherever you're taking notes in the Google Doc or Word document. So Liz, question that I have, we talk about that we cannot continue to degrade topsoil at the rate that we're currently doing it, right? I mean, it's just not sustainable. Can we turn the tide? What can we turn the tide, and what must we do to do that? I mean,
yes, we can. The first step is, learning from people that are doing this, and I think Keith was saying it, being a part of a community and having that support system. That way when we try to change our practices, we're not failing. People have done this before. We can all work together to change every acre if we wanted to. Secondly, is not being too restrictive on the definitions of regenerative. That's become a hot topic. Where organic is not scalable across the entire United States on every single acre. But what regenerative is, as long as we keep it climate and context specific. And I think those are really two important things, being flexible and having a good community around you.
Yeah, good answer. Amen. I would agree with that. Like, not only can we, but we must, and that's one of the purposes here of this summit, is to give you the tools and the encouragement and the community to support you on that journey. Don't be the mountain man that Keith talked about and try to go it alone, right? A lot of those guys didn't survive, but the pioneers who took a community with them, they had a higher likelihood of getting to their destination without casualty. So very cool. We really appreciate your expertise and what you've done to quantify the value of the regenerative movement, Liz, and being able to have those baseline measurements and take soil tests periodically to show that, hey, this isn't subjective. Like, I think things are improving. You can objectively determine, are you really being regenerative or not? So I think that's awesome.
Thank you.